All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Friday, April 19th, 2024. If not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts, analysis, and live day trading. Anyways, let's get into it today. So markets here with another sell, and if you just looked at the cash open, you'd think it was just another straight kind of decline. Look at the week here. So outside of the gap up, we had a pretty good, because we gapped up so much, we had a little bit of a hard sell, but really just kind of this whole week, right, it's been just pretty much like right in line, like kind of a straight line down, without any real bounces, no bounces that were sustained. But last night, obviously, we had the explosions in Iran. They turned out to be not really that big of a deal. Market did sell off pretty sharply, and then rebounded by the open. And then we were unable to, I talked about this morning to members, that this is the big level. If bulls get back above this, we can bottom. But we are obviously unable to sustain above that area between, 50, 45 and, 50, 55, that kind of like little 10-point range there. And we just kind of just rolled over for the rest of the day here. So markets right now are obviously lower. That's 6 days in a row now. And, as you guys know, I've been short since we had that sell signal up here. I'm, a little surprised at how fast we've gone down, though. Definitely a little bit of a shock here. And I've been peeling back shorts the last couple of days. I do think we're getting close to kind of a rip your face off type rally. We did finally fill the gap. We got a gap down. It wasn't as much of a gap down. I was really hoping, like today, I would have liked the best setup for bulls to go long would have been, here, let me go back from the futures here. We just stay here. Like if we had just kind of stayed down here by the market open, right? And we just gapped down, like let's say we gapped down at 49.80 and then we flushed the first 30 minutes. That's where you can get that V shape. But it wasn't really that type of action. Again, like I said, it was just kind of just this grind down. You could even make, you can go to like a 30-minute. You can just say that 20 MA there on the 30-minute just been resistance. So it was that type of day. So technically we got the gap down I was looking for, just not quite the right setup, price action wise. But that said, I think we're getting a little close here. I think bears are getting a little overzealous here in the short term. There's also, I wouldn't rule out the fact that a lot of this may have to do with OPEX here as well. It's not a coincidence that we just got pushed below 5K right on OPEX Friday. Something else to consider. We're getting close to that 100 MA as well. We've got a pivot low right here and another pivot around 49.20. But additionally, I think the more telling chart is the Qs, and you can see here we got a lot to talk about with the semis today. Big trade here closing out SMCI today for a winner on the short side and on the long side intraday too, so twice. But this yellow line here represents not only essentially the flat line for the year, but it's also a previous all-time high on the triple Qs. So I think if we were to pierce that on Monday, maybe down to 408 or so, there's a pivot right here, a gap right there. I would think the buyers will probably step in, or at least shorts will cover, and that's where you can kind of get that bounce here. But market's down pretty good. Like I said, bears definitely followed through. I talked about this 2 weeks ago. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, we recovered, we're good," and I said, I think for bears, you actually that's fine. You don't want to go down straight because then you're going to just V-shape, right? So building that bear base right there was the best thing that bears could have done to get this big flush here. But like I said, short term, I'm getting a little, I wouldn't say nervous. I've already been covering, but I would be nervous if I hadn't covered any puts or shorts or anything like that. So I would recommend, at least for me, scaling back, maybe dipping the toe into a few longs, but knowing that you may have to average in. So I think risk reward here, we're starting to get a little skewed in the short term. We're probably not going to recover much today. It's 3:35. I'm just doing this in real time right now. I would think that if we're down tomorrow, it would probably down Monday. It would probably set up like a turnaround Tuesday type action if we don't recover Monday. But that said, really good move here for the Bears, and it was tech driven. So if you actually look at the Russell today, down just 45 cents on the IWM. Maybe it gets down to the 200, but they're talking about a hemorrhage here. So eventually you're going to get some type of a bounce. Again, weekly 1, 2, 3 down. Usually you get some type of a bid. You can see the same thing on the SPX. 1, 2, 3 down. Usually you're going to get some type of a pause or retrace when that happens. But IWM and the Dow's up almost 0.5% in a down tape. Now you can make a case you've got a bearish inside bar here on the daily. In fact, that is a bearish inside bar on the daily. But there's a lot of support here, right? It just took a month to break up from, so it's not likely going to break through there in 4 or 5 days. Doesn't mean we can't go lower, test maybe this pivot, but I don't think there's going to be much past that. In fact, if you look at the Dow futures, we did that, right? We already did that. So right back up, little probing candle there, and then the Dow came back. Why the Dow is the leader? It's blue chips, right? So safety. So that makes sense. What was down big today? Oh boy, semiconductors down 4.6. Been warning about lower highs for a long time on this, and that is more than confirmed at this point. So lower high there, we broke the trend, bearish inside bar breakdown. Again, another reason why I think we're going to bounce soon. Look at this support. It's not weekly. It is daily though. Pivot, gap fill, 100 MA. I think if you slice that. Monday, there's a lot of chop in here too. I would say that there's a good chance that we get a bid going into the middle to latter part next week. You got the 382 right there. Below that, you got a 50% fib too. So we're coming to some levels here. Market's getting slammed, and expectedly, but I didn't expect it to be this quickly. Again, usually the first leg of the bear is the weakest. So if this is the weak one, there's probably another one coming, and after a bounce, and I think that will be the big one that really knocks your socks off. But right now, particularly SMCI closed out a short in this today with the swing trades. We actually got a really nice long off as well using the Gamma and the GEX. It's an awesome tool to have. It's almost like a cheat sheet. In fact, it is. We got to scalp that 800, and SMCI, a 10-point scalp, is actually I think we took 1.5% on it in a few minutes. So that's a pretty good little day trade there. But closed out our short there on SMCI as well in the swing trade service. We did fill the gap here. I mean, you could see it go to 650 tomorrow. I was hoping it would go to 650 in general. I just saw it down so much in one day. I wanted to take some profits. But, SMCI down, NVDA, little support here at 750. After that, the gap. I mentioned ASML earlier this week, lowering guidance. It's bringing, these guys kind of kicked it off, right, with that sell on Wednesday. Again, into the 100 MA, you got the gap here. So a little bit of support. AMD's just been punished. This is getting a little oversold too. That might want 140, 200 MA. Honestly, AMD looks a little attractive here. I know I got to check their earnings, but if that continues down in a straight line, I might have to step into that, depending on when their earnings are. I have to double check on that. But some of these semis have been getting pounded. And my favorite, ARM. So Masa Son finally done selling. Obviously, I think their window to sell was middle April, if I'm not mistaken. Imagine that, right? And ever since that line in the sand broke, we're through that power gap where they pumped the hell out of this, and then Gamma squeezed it for 3 days. So $80, $75 on this. And again, assuming this is down big Monday, right, there's going to be buyers stepping in right here, right, I would think. So again, I think we're kind of close. We're closing in here to some type of a bounce, but massive sell here in the semis. And again, I didn't think we'd come down this fast, even though I was bearish. IGV, we're broken. So we're below that pivot on a weekly. So ultimately, this should get back to 74, 75. Not in a straight line, right? Pivot there, 200 MA. It looks like it might want to get down there, but after that, you probably get some type of a bounce. Should be a bounce for selling, though. Another breakdown. Dow Transports. I've been talking about this since the end of the year. That is now a failed bullish inside bar on the weekly. So I would be really careful with the transports here. I think any bounce is probably a selling opportunity. And you're doing it on volume too. That's all it needs to be said right now. Transports are weak. I don't even know where, I mean, probably like 14.5 would be your next area, maybe 14.4. But even that, I mean, 14 even is probably where it would ultimately go. So not good there to see the transports lose. I've been talking about that for a long time, and that's broken down now. All right, rates, nothing changed. 2-year, that can still go higher. That means the Fed can't cut. 5s, 10s, 30s, all doing the same thing. If they go sideways long enough, they can go higher. I mean, I know I think I talked about this yesterday about TLT looking kind of attractive. I still think it kind of does, but it's not really enough for me to buy. Just because I think something looks all right does not mean a buy. Like, there has to be actual proprietary evidence for it to go higher. And besides which, like I said, this can just go sideways and then go up. If that happens, then there's lots of problems. And that is finally broken XHB, which again, getting down to some levels, 100 MA, 96, 50, 97. So again, we're coming into some local support here for a lot of things. VNQ was up the last 2 days, but it's also been punished really hard, really ever since so April 9th, so early last week. So I wouldn't make too much out of the bounce it's getting. I wouldn't say like, oh, it's showing relative strength. It's already been pounded. So a lot of those gains have been, or a lot of those losses rather, have been pulled forward, if you ask me. So I don't even have a level on this. I would just avoid it. Here's your biggest, by far the biggest point for the bulls. XLF has bucked the trend the last 3 days. That is unquestionable. As has KRE, believe it or not. KRE up 2%. It's been up 2% all day long. And that's with the, spiders getting hit. We're going to dump out here. They're going to flush it out the last 30 minutes. Nobody's going to want to hold in the weekend. So they're going to get a little panic here, which is good. I want to see panic. But KRE holding up and XLF holding up, that's probably the biggest point for the bulls right now if you're going to make one. Is the fact that fins are not participating in the sell. At least not, substantially anyway. I'm still expecting lower highs. You'll have resistance above 41, 41.15 or so on XLF, but the fact it's showing relative strength definitely says something. And the fact that KBE didn't break down. So unlike the transports, unlike VNQ, KBE still holding up on the weekly. Broker dealers, you can make a case it's bear flagging, but again, still holding up the last 2 days. Ultimately, 560. All right, oil, this is why we recovered overnight. I mentioned this to members. I said if we don't sustain above 85, the market probably rallies back up, and it did. Granted, we also gave it all back here now, and they're gonna try and flush everybody out right now and make you bar a few shares. Funny the Russell's not making new lows though, but oil here up 14 cents right now. It is way off the highs though, and it got rejected up here at 85.50. I think there's a high end for oil right now. It did if like Iran, or if Israel allegedly bombing a Iran nuclear site doesn't make this go what does, even though it ended up not being fully true. They still bombed them. The chart just doesn't look that great here, and on the weekly, looks like we're going to close below 82.60, which would negate that breakout bar. So I think oil's probably done here. I will say though, XLE is holding up, and it's likely, it's going to hold the level I wanted it to hold, which is that previous high, that 52-week high, multi-year high really. It's going to hold that on a weekly close, and it's going to hold the green breakout bar on a weekly close. So XLE, it's in better shape. I'm not saying it's a buy, but it's in better shape. XOP, same thing. It's a little bit weaker though, and then OIH is a little bit weaker than both, but it held the level I talked about, 320. It should get a bid there, so we'll see if that can bounce up next week. Ultimately, I think they all have backing and filling to do more of a leg down. That'll be a leg for buying though. Uranium here, nothing doing today. It acted like nothing happened on the weekly here with CCJ. This is fine. Big thrust failure, and then it recovered nicely. So if this consolidates, it can go higher. URNM's a little bit weaker. I don't like how you're just on the cusp of that green bar low there, but again, it's holding up okay. And to be fair, you never closed below this green bar here anyway. So that's fine. And the same thing with the NJ too. No problems really. Just doing weekly consolidation, that's healthy. Like to see more of it. The more it does it, the more of a breakout it can sustain. Nat gas here up fractionally, was up earlier, just like oil. In fact, we look at the intraday. I've had a big, here it is, big spike. Then it retested, then it spiked again, and now it's back down. There's an interesting theory. I talked about this earlier this week, but hedge funds and institutions are crowded in a lot of trades. One of them is always short nat gas. Another one, as we know, is long semiconductors, right? If you're going to get margin called on something, it's just a theory here. There is a correlation too that's been noted before of basically nat gas trading inverse to the spiders. I know it sounds insane, but it does happen. If you're getting margin called, if everybody's in the same semi, right, and they're all getting margin called at the same time, you have to do what? You got to raise capital. And how do you do that? You sell a winner. And if you're shorting nat gas over and over and over and over and over and over again, they can get these spikes here. And lately, it's been getting some pretty big spikes intraday that have been faded. So it's not like they're fundamental spikes, but it's almost like just a one-off. And it looks like the shorts are having trouble keeping it down. We get higher lows here, higher highs. So I think nat gas is interesting. I'm watching this little wedge here. If it can break through that, it can have a little rally. But got to get above that first. Dollar index still holding up, flat today. Actually came back pretty nicely. Opened lower earlier, and again, it's just consolidating. It's a lot of resistance up here. It's going to need a lot of time to do that. Gold, much like oil, big rally early, and then it pulled back here, and we can see it pulling back towards the end of the day right now. Again, it's still above 2,400. It's still hanging in there okay. I still think this is probably a local high. I'd like to see it actually break support being 2340 at least before starting to get talking about downside targets. But it did pull back. Silver too, although silver's going to get a weekly close above 28. That's a positive. So silver's still holding up all right. Actually, let me just check the miners too. Yeah, GDX holding up all right too. But pretty good outside move there last week. Platinum backing off. Starting to get interested in this again at 920 to reload that. Palladium not doing a ton. Hasn't done anything here. Still think it's interesting down here though. Gold really coming in right now too. Maybe they'll try and push. What's GLD at? Maybe there's like a strike at 221 that they want it below. All right. Anyway, the real rock star today is copper. 450 handle achieved. You had a little bit of a pivot here at 457, and then I think 460 is where it goes before it gets a real pullback. But copper has went on a tear. Bitcoin here, actually green today, but I do think we're going to get a lower high. Again, you guys know what I'm going to say though. The weekly is still fine. This can just consolidate and then just blast off later. So then until the weekly starts seeing damage, I think it's all right. But I do think we'll get a lower high here at some point on Bitcoin here for another push down. All right, so outside of that, it looks like the market's trying to hold up at least by the Russell. Let me see. Yeah, so they spiked the low there. Where are we at? 49.50? 49.60. Let me just take a look here. So we'll close right around in this area here. So the Gamma Boys doing their thing. Again, I'm very curious to see how this trades next week and how much of this was just a OPEX push down. I would have thought we would close right at 5K, but yeah, I guess the put's won here. So again, congrats to the Bears. I guess I'm a bear, so I guess cut myself. But even though it feels like I'm long because I'm like looking for I'm like waiting for this bounce here and that gap down. So I think that's the next trade here. Is at least in the short term, is to get that rip your face off rally. But yeah, nice move this week. Good to see some action. I love when the market's actually alive and not just doped up on liquidity. You can actually get some real trades and real stocks on both sides of the tape, and that's what makes a market, and that's what makes trading fun. So, anyways, guys, gonna wrap it up here. You guys take care. Have a great weekend. Get some rest. We had a long week, and I'll see you guys all on Monday.